Now let me take this concept of ERD a little further, and we'll use this as an example of reinforcing what ERDs can do. So here I am trying to replace the ternary relationship which we saw a couple of slides before between vendor, SKU and warehouse into an associative entity. So with the help of an associative entity, and we'll call it shipment, we will convert this ternary relationship into three binary relationships. So the ERD will look something like this. Now, instead of the supply happening from a warehouse belonging to a vendor and the supply of an SKU, now I am creating a new entity called as a shipment, which comes into existence only when you have all these three put together. It's like a package that is being delivered. So the package would contain some product SKU, it would be sold by a vendor, and the shipment will originate from a warehouse. So this you can observe the relationship among different entities. Let us start from the vendor and the shipment. So every vendor can sell multiple shipments, right? And it's optional. Some vendors may not have any shipments. Their products are not getting sold. Similarly, every SKU can have many shipments. And here I have made it compulsory to have shipments from an SKU to shipment. It's a compulsory many relationship. Then between warehouse and shipment, again it is optional. The warehouse can send many shipments, right, belonging to different products or same product to different customers. And it's optional. Some warehouses are just sitting idle and they never send a shipment. It's possible, it's thinkable. And look at the other way around. Each shipment must originate from one warehouse. So that is kind of a given. Each shipment in this situation must have one and only one vendor and one and only one product or an SKU. So that means we are sending only one item in one box. Now, depending on your circumstances, you may want to tweak these relationships, and that's where the role of the system architect comes into picture. That how they want to design their system. Do they want the shipment to have many vendors? Do they want the system to have many SKUs, the shipment to have many SKUs, or just one? So sometimes your business is such that you want to have only one product in one box. But sometimes, for example, if you look at any pharmacy sales like 1mg or Pharmeasy and all, they can't sell only one medicine in one box. So they must, combine. So they generally have multiple items in one box because one strip of tablet or one a bottle of a syrup, it's not economical to send it in a separate box. So they generally club everything and put it into one box and then send it out. So there, uh, if the system analyst creates this type of a diagram, at the time of dispatches, the poor dispatch clerk will have to create one shipment for every product that is being sold, and which is a big headache because every time a label may get printed and it has to be then again pasted on a box, and it's a big mess. So in such a situation, you would want the shipment to be able to have many to many relationship with vendors as well as with the products, because you would want to sell many medicines in the same shipment, and these many medicines may not come from the same vendor, they may be coming from many vendors. So it's important how you choose these relationships and specify them, and then hand it over to the development team, because they are what uh, the development and the software will look like. So this was an example of the associative entity creation, and it also helps us that now our shipment is a new entity, and we can now uh, have attributes of the shipment. For example, you have the delivery date, estimated delivery, or the weight of the shipment. So such things can be now specified. Whereas in the ternary relationship, probably it was not possible to have a uh, attributes of the relationship itself. Although some software allow the relationship itself to have attributes. That means supply here can have attributes, but this one is much more neater way to um, present the relationships. So it's quite common to convert all higher order relationships into binary relationships with the help of some associative entity. So I would like at this point for you to think about what can be different uh, possible relationships, and what happens if you define uh, a relationship in such a way. What would be the business implications of that? Next, I will move on to talk about the process and flow design. So there are a few techniques that help us with that. Something which you must have been learning from high school, and these days it is even taught in elementary school, is this flow charts and algorithms. So since you already know about it, I am not going to spend time on that. There is the next thing known as the data flow diagram. So these are basically diagrams that tell the programmers how is the data going to flow from, let us say, a form to a database to a web page, all these things, and within among databases also, and there may be some processing in between, some calculations or some additions or some lookups and all that. So that's a data flow diagram which looks something like this. So this is a sample diagram, very elementary one. So there is a salesman database from which the ID number comes. A bonus calculation happens, which comes from the database of sales. So you pick up how much sales happened by this salesman ID, and for that salesman a bonus calculation will happen, and that bonus amount will be saved into a new database called as the bonus records database. So it can be a database or it can be a record also, whichever way you want to look at it. So this is how the data flow looks like. Generally this simple box is an input or an output box. That means someone is keying in this number. The horizontal bar and then a box is processing, and vertical bar is used to represent a database or a storage, data storage. So this is a sample data flow diagram. What basically it is telling is uh, the salesperson ID is entered, bonus is calculated and written into bonus record. Next, sometimes we use a small thing called as process specification, which makes use of these semi-structured sentences. They are not following any strict syntax. They are just using English language, but follow some method. So here it says, on receipt of input called as barcode, read item record. Using the barcode you will read what this item is about. Then next, for tax rate in item record, calculate quantity times price times tax rate. Update the bill amount, output the bill amount. So this is, it gives you a fair idea about what is happening there. Basically, the bill is getting generated once someone is scanning the barcode. And the important item here is that you want to check which item it is and what is the corresponding tax rate. Because, for example, in India, we have the 4-tier GST taxation. So there, some items are at 5% GST, some are at 12% GST, some are at 18, and some may be at 28% GST. So for each item, the tax rate is fixed. It does not change as long as the barcode is the same. So if you are buying a pack of biscuits, so biscuits have been consistently being taxed at 5%. It never changed to 6% or 12% or any such thing. So for that barcode, we know what is the tax rate, and then you calculate the tax rate. So that's what it is happening. Next, I'll talk about some of the best practices in the data modeling and MIS design. So there are mainly 3 points I want to make here. Number one is we want to have minimal redundancy. We don't want too many tools to be used. But at the same time, we would want the whole system to be captured. So why minimal redundancy? Because it may happen that between the tools you are specifying something which is not consistent with each other. In an ERD you are telling something and then you are contradicting that in the data flow diagram. So if such a thing happens, then poor programmer will have to break his or her head and work for endless hours to be able to make sense of it. So it's important to tell what the system is and be able to explain the system with a minimum number of tools, rather than just creating these charts just because you know them. So that's number one. Number two is optimal complexity. You don't want to get into each and every detail and tell everything. If you create an all-encompassing flow chart, it will probably run into many pages, or you will have to maybe paint the whole wall and show what is what. So what is typically prescribed is less than 10 processes on a page. You don't tell more than 10 things on a page. And in doing so, what happens is you will end up having many number of pages, but then that also has to be kept into a limit. So generally it is said that keep it within 5 to 9 processes in a given page or at a given level. So if you have to get into more details, then have multiple levels. So as it says, top down partitioning, you start with the level 0, which is the highest level, and then keep adding. There'll be a level 1 which will explain each step of level 0 into some detail. So there'll be 4 or 5 diagrams at level 1. Then at level 2 you may have even more diagrams, and level 3 some more. So like that you can have drill down into the whole big complex project, rather than trying to capture everything on the same level and same one page. So that's the general practice. So like we saw the example of the sales commission calculation, which can be a one step, but if you look at the overall sales process, there may be dozens of processes. In there may be an appointment booking, there may be a sales target setting, budgeting, travel, there may be people executing the sales. The lead has been converted into sales, so purchase order has come and then payment is being made. So many processes are there. No need to capture everything in one large page. It's instead desirable to create one high level diagram and then move to level 1, where you give some more details about each step. So this is what is suggested by coming from experience of people who have been doing this. So these are the 3 points. So with this, our main theory about this data modeling comes to an end. what needs to be done now is take up some group activities. We will do some exercises that will be in live session. But in the meantime, if anybody has any questions, queries, feel free to post them in the comments or message in the forum. All the best.